Aloha aina, ano ai, velina kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau-Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumu filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Ano ai kawelina ia kākoa pauloa me ke aloha nui. Mahalo anui kaloko mai ka i o ke ala e ko Hawaii nei pai aina o wau no o kumuhina.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Leon Kaulahau-Siu, and we welcome you to this episode of Free Hawaii News.
In addition to flags, a national anthem, statues of their heroes, nations send teams to participate in sporting events to represent their country. For years, whenever Hawaii athletes competed in international events, they did so under the American flag and the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner because they were representing the U.S. Now, that is changing with the formation by Hui Kanaka po of the Hawaiian national soccer team Na Alapa. The Hawaii national soccer team has both Kane and Wahine teams. It is the first ever Native Hawaiian football or soccer federation dedicated to using association football to reclaim Hawaiian national identity. Their mission is to produce meaningful impacts on the physical, emotional, and mental health of their players, their families, and the Native Hawaiian community, so Hawaiian national identity can be revived and collectively expressed and shared. Na Alapa, the Hawaiian national soccer team, traveled to Aotearoa to compete against Tongan and Maori teams in soccer matches. We go now to Aotearoa, where Noelani Bio, the assistant coach for the girls' Hawaiian national soccer team, is standing by to tell us more. Aloha mai e Noelani.
Aloha, Hina. Mahalo for having me on Free Hawaii News. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us, Noelani, how does it feel being in Aotearoa, competing in international soccer, representing the Hawaiian nation?
It feels amazing to be out here in New Zealand, competing on an international scale. Soccer is such a renowned sport, and to be representing Hawaii while being here playing soccer it feels amazing. We're very honored.
Could you tell us what competition your teams are playing in?
Currently, the Maori Football Association, they are hosting what's called a Clash of Cultures, which is their 2023 Polynesian Youth Cup. Basically, in soccer terms, it's just friendlies, but because they're putting it, official on their end, we'll go with that.
If you might be able to expound on why soccer was chosen to raise awareness of Hawaiian nationality.
Soccer has always been at the forefront of international sports. So that being able to represent the Hawaiian nation while playing a sport that's so world-renowned, it just proves how impactful, the soccer stage really is. It's the universal language, right? So to do so under the Hawaiian flag, it really brings it home for us. Being kind of the ambassadors for Hawaii and Hawaii youth soccer, it's not only impactful to ourselves. It's fulfilling in so many different ways. I think it's overwhelming at some points, but it certainly it makes our heart full. We're filled with so much aloha. We're welcomed with so much aloha. It's almost like we are part of this nation as well.
Are all of your players both the Kane and Wahine? Are they Kanaka?
We have 18 on each roster, 18 Kane, 18 Wahine, and they're all Kanaka Maoli. We have players from Oahu, Hawaii Island, Maui, and Kauai. Majority of them, they all go to their ages differ, right? We have mostly juniors and seniors. but we do have one or two who are only freshmen. But they do go to different schools, some public, some private. They all play for different clubs, and they all have different backgrounds. And of course, their upbringing is all different as well.
So Noelani, how many players originally tried out for Na'alapa?
We had a little over 300 participants trying out for Na'alapa. Out of those 300, there was only 18 roster spots. So 18 men and 18 women out of the 300. So 36 total.
How important is the heritage of your players for them?
At the start of this, heritage was not at the forefront. It was probably secondary to, when they found out that they could be a part of an international national team. Of course, the first thing that comes to their mind is, wow, we get to play soccer at an international level. But now I think moving forward, and after all the time that we've spent together, we've trained at Hilo, had camps in Hilo, had camps on Oahu, and we've had cultural advisors bring in this heritage part of the game and of this organization. And, that alone opened everyone's eyes, to, wow, we could do this, not only play soccer, but we could do it for our Aina, for our people, for ourselves, and then being here, especially in Aotearoa, we had a pofiri, we played in our first match, that of course, it's so overwhelming. And in that in itself, you could just see, okay, this is not just about soccer. This is about so much more. And I think every player and every coach, for me especially, so grateful for this opportunity because I get to learn so much about, my ancestry. And I think the players feel the same way.
How has this experience been for you as one of the assistant coaches to actually make this happen?
Being in Aotearoa is just proves that we're living the dream, seeing the Maori and seeing their organization and how unified they are. I think it gives us so much hope for the future of our youth, our Kanaka, and this organization especially.
What do you see the impact of being there in Aotearoa? What is it for the team members, and has it changed them? And if it has, how has it changed them?
I've had players come up to me in tears, like, Coach, this is so cool. Coach, wow, I found my counterpart here. Because we had, at the Pofidi, they had a cultural exchange with the other players, the opposing team players, and they got together by positions and they started, talking, just chatting about who they were, what positions they played, where they came from. And it was so interesting because a lot of the players felt like, wow, hey, Coach, this could be like my sister. This could be like my little sister over here or a teammate of mine. We went through everything that we've been practicing. So we had a walkout, an international walkout. We had a tunnel with the men standing there as we walked out of the locker room. It was very professional. They met referees at the halfway line. They exchanged each team has a flag or a national flag to exchange. They did the international exchange. They did the coin flip. And then what was the best part about it is we sang our national anthem. We sang Hawaii Pono'i. They sang theirs. And, the friends and family who were there, they all chimed in. They were joining in on the singing. And then we did our oli that we had prepared. And they did their haka, which was amazing. And then it started raining. So it was certainly a blessing. I think you had to be there, really. I mean, I'm just getting chicken skin talking about it because it was such an amazing experience. It was soccer like it's never been felt or done before. And you can see it in the players' eyes. they were laser sharp focused. They were almost in tears. It's almost like watching them. Right now the Women's World Cup is going on, and we're watching these same women that we look up to do the same things, right? And now to see our own players and our own teammates doing the same thing as what the women on TV are doing, I mean, that is so emotional.
Noelani, what opportunities does Na'alapa and the Hawaiian national soccer team create for all Kanaka or all of our Hawaiians?
People are tuning in. They're watching us, through live streaming. They're connected to us through social media, and they're seeing, all of the just successes we've been having. And they're almost for us, we tell the players, hey, you're going to set this bar, you're setting this standard, and you're paving the way, you're paving the path for the youth, right? Because we are the first ones to be doing this. They understand that it's going to impact so much younger people, because soccer is so popular in Hawaii that they know that it's going to, not only create youth camps, but maybe younger teams. Maybe now moving forward, we'd like to start with younger kids and training them just like how they do it on the international level.
No leila, mahalo anu ia oe e Noelani no ko ho'okupa'a, no kau mauhana mai kai. Mahalo anui, Noelani. Also standing by in Aotearoa is one of the players on the Wahine Na'alapa team, Kaya Juliet Kapaku. Aloha, Kaya.
Aloha, Hina. It's great to be here.
As part of Na'alapa, the Hawaiian national soccer team, why is being in Aotearoa important to you and your teammates?
It's very important to us as a people, as we are the first of its kind and we're making history, and to just represent our Lahui and get it known so that more people know about us and know about the organization and what we're doing is super cool. And I'm really proud to be a part of it and to be a part of first of its kind, something first of its kind. And you really don't hear, like at home, you don't hear anything like this, and there's nothing really like this for us as Hawaiians to represent our culture while also playing the sport that we love.
What would you say is the level of significance to be a part of this Hawaiian national team to you?
Every single day I get to practice my Hawaiian language, and that's something I really don't get to do at home. And we also have Pico every morning, and we get to interact with people like us, Hawaiians, and we're all here together with the same goal of playing games and representing our culture. And being a part of this culture is something I'm very proud of and something that I love doing. I know some of my teammates don't get to experience this, whether it's the school they came from or just their upbringing, and it's super cool for me to see them indulging themselves in their culture and seeing them try to speak our language and doing the oli and the mele and having a sense of pride doing it. So it's really cool to see everyone really indulging themselves in our culture.
How has this trip impacted you personally?
I feel this trip has impacted me personally in many ways. In one way that I get to see the Maori people and us as Hawaiians, that we have so many things in common. Like our language is very similar, the way they act is very similar, but different. So it's really cool to see a different culture while also playing the game I love and representing the culture that I am while doing everything simultaneously in a way. And it's really fun and cool to see the balance that we have to have with our culture and us playing soccer and soccer players. So I feel this has impacted me positively, especially going into college, that you have to be flexible and that things are subject to change and you just have to roll with it.
Kaya, how does it feel to you to be able to spread our Hawaiian culture and the presence of our Lahui, our people, our nation out there, so that it is more known that we're still here?
It's very cool. When we were at the World Cup, we had multiple people come up to us and even ask what our Hawaiian flag is. And I feel that it's very interesting to know that there's people out there that don't even know what our flag looks like. And it's super cool to educate them and tell them who we are as a people and where we come from, and that we're not just American, that we have our own flag and that we are Hawaiian.
What kinds of examples are you hoping to set? What are your goals for playing soccer and being a part of the games in Aotearoa?
Well, me and my team, we're looking to set the standard of play here and just know, like, we came here to play and not just lose. We came here to win, and that Hawaiian people, that we can play soccer.
Why is it important for everyone, especially in Hawaii, to see Na'alapa as a Hawaiian national team instead of a state of Hawaii team?
I feel that it's very important for everyone to know and be proud that we are Hawaiian, especially people from Hawaii, and that we are not American, and that we are Hawaiian, and we came here to represent our culture and our people and our Lahui as Hawaiians and not as Americans.
Kaya, what do you think the biggest takeaway is going to be for all of you from this trip?
I think the biggest takeaway is the cultural part, because when I go home, I don't think that I'll be indulged in our culture as much, which is crazy to say because we are in a different country while also sharing our culture with other people. So I'm going to miss that, but I am going to take that home with me to college. But I am going to Manoa, so I hope that I will be having this cultural exchange of us as Hawaiians, us as a Lahui while I go there. But I feel like the biggest takeaway is knowing that this organization is for us, and it's an outlet for us to be Hawaiian and be proud of who we are, and that hopefully I can continue on with this team and I can continue to share our culture.
How do you hope that your trip to Aotearoa and your participation in these games will inspire others?
I feel and I hope that this trip inspires others to be proud of who we are and be proud of who we are as Hawaiian people and as a Lahui. And I hope this inspires people to get out there and make our culture known and get active. Like, we can have multiple sports, be doing something like this, and for all the soccer people to want to be a part of this organization, because it is the first of its kind for you to share your culture and our Lahui, and it's really cool.
What is your message to someone in Hawaii watching us right now who wants to learn soccer and play for Na'alapa?
Love your culture and love the game, love soccer, and once you have those two pieces, it'll just go from there. Like, it's a lot of hard work and dedication, and don't be scared of the work, be scared of not working, and just love what you do, and everything will come next.
Ano laila mahalo anu e ia o e kaya no kao mau hana mai kai ho'o mau, ho'o I kaika, kuli e kanuu, loa ai ka leo kalanakila. Mahalo.
As many of you may know, I serve as the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Hawaiian Kingdom. Consequently, I travel quite a bit in the international arena. Recently, I was in Geneva, Switzerland, as well as Bern and Zurich, Switzerland. And I was there to follow up on some leads and some projects that we are looking at to do in Switzerland. One of the opportunities I had was to stop in Bern, which is the capital of Switzerland, to examine some documents at the archives, the National Archives of Switzerland. And a friend of mine had set up an opportunity to go in and examine these documents. So when we got there, the Swiss archivists had set up 2 large boxes of documents that we had requested. One of them had to do with the treaty that the Hawaiian Kingdom and the Swiss Confederation had signed in 1864. And we have always, of course, maintained that our treaties are still extant, that is, they are still in existence, that they are still in effect. But I was there not just to do that, but just to look at the treaty itself, as well as the documentation and all of the communications that occurred in the making of this treaty. Because it's quite interesting to follow not only the original document, but also to find what people were talking about and how it came about. So I was handed a very large box that had these documents in it. not only the treaty, but again, all the communications that occurred among the Swiss and between the Swiss and Hawaii, and all of these letters that had been exchanged, as well as votes that were taken by the Swiss Assembly, and concerns that were expressed, as well as words of support for this treaty. So the interesting thing, or I think the meaningful thing for me, was that here was the live discussion that had gone on to create this treaty, and that was very meaningful to me because often we think of these treaties as just a document, but here was an entire discussion that took place, and serious consideration being made in the adoption of a treaty. And when you stop to think of it, the Hawaiian Kingdom had treaties with many different nations, both bilateral treaties, that is between two countries, and multilateral treaties, that is between several countries. And all of these, somewhere or all around these, in these different nations, they have archives as well. And in those archives are records of these discussions that had gone on with the Hawaiian Kingdom as a sovereign, independent country, creating these treaties with other nations. So that was very reassuring to see that a treaty, of course, is not simply a finished piece of paper, but it's actually a whole lot of consideration and debate and talks that went on prior to the signing of the treaty. Now, I came across one other very important and interesting document, and that was a letter that was written by Walter M. Gibson, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Hawaiian Kingdom under Kalakaʻa's reign. And he wrote this letter on behalf of the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Kingdom and King Kalakaʻa, of course, and the people of Hawaii. And the letter was a protest that Kalakaʻa filed with the Swiss government, as well as with many of our other treaty nations, I would assume. And the protest was protesting the presence and the activities of European nations colonizing Pacific nations. Now, this document was written in 1883. So this was 10 years before the United States action that caused the Pilikia that we are in now, that is before the United States landed troops in Hawaii to take over the Hawaiian Islands. In 1883, this was going on in Pacific Island nations. And so Kalakaʻa, as a sovereign, as the king of the Hawaiian Kingdom, as a sovereign nation, protested the taking of these nations. So he was basically saying, and he had said in the document itself, he listed what the problem was, that this was a violation of international law, and that each nation had the right to independence, to the right to their sovereignty. So he was standing up for these countries 10 years before the United States violated our treaty, and the other countries violated our treaties as well. So what I found interesting in this is that today, as I've mentioned before, the tables are turned. Most of the rest of the Pacific Islands are either independent or autonomous nations. That is, they are recognized that they are separate nations. But Hawaii is still captive. The irony of this is really quite profound. So in the 1880s, Kalakaʻa is, as the one sovereign Pacific nation, he's arguing to stop the colonization of the other Pacific nations. Today, the other Pacific nations have undergone decolonization and other types of means of becoming independent. But Hawaii is still a captured nation. So the irony is that now we need the help of those nations that Kalakaʻa had supported back then. And even though his protests had gone unheard, today we are in a different situation as far as the world's view of colonization and decolonization. So this is a much better climate for our Pacific nations to speak up on behalf of the fact that the Hawaiian Kingdom is still a sovereign nation, only being dominated and controlled by the United States. So this is, again, a very interesting situation, and I just want to call your attention to the fact that Hawaii is a sovereign nation. It belongs with the rest of the sovereign nations of the world as a sovereign and independent, neutral country. Mauna Kea and the 30-meter telescope, also called TMT, was back in the news when a public hearing scheduled by the Department of Land and Natural Resources, the DLNR, for late July was postponed. The hearing was to address the challenge the Mauna Kea Hui brought against a renewal of a construction permit for the 30-meter telescope atop Mauna Kea. To explain it to us and bring us up to date, we go now to Hawaii Island for a report from Royal Order of Kamehameha member Kumu Paul Nevis. Aloha, Kumu Paul.
Aloha, Leon. It's good to see you.
Kumu Paul, can you give us an overview and update on what has been going on lately regarding efforts to start construction of the 30-meter telescope?
We were to have a hearing on the 28th because we had our attorneys that we had objected to certain things that TMT was saying that it would continue its construction. We do not believe that that's true. However, at this time, I need to leave that to our attorneys to fully explain in the hearing.
Explain to us, please, about the push to get another extension to the construction permit to build the TMT.
The push is they still want to build this. After all that's happened, they still want to build it. Not too long ago, NSF came out and also tried to sell basically the TMT again. And they were met by, again, a large opposition all over this island saying no to it. And I just think it's just they're not acknowledging that this thing is done. It's a no. But they will continue, I guess, on this course as long as the state or the university or both give them credence to go in that direction.
Kumu Nevis, why do you think they postponed the hearing that was scheduled for July 28th?
I have no idea why they would postpone it. I mean, is there something that perhaps Free Hawaii News needs to interview them? Why did they postpone it? Because we were prepared, as far as I was made aware, to have the hearing on the 28th. So I have no idea why they're postponing it.
The University of Hawaii says it began construction according to the time stipulated in their permit. So why is the Mauna Kea Hui challenging that?
That's correct. They can't have started it because we have seen nothing to start. And if they do try to start it, well, that's just not going to happen. I think the university is just trying to put words where there are no sentences for those words.
The start date for construction has been extended by the state several times over the last 4 to 5 years, despite all the delays and missed deadlines by the UH. Do you think the Department of Land and Natural Resources will keep on doing that?
They proposed this years ago, over 10 years ago. They came and started talking about it, and we said no at that time. In 2015, they actually were trying to do a groundbreaking, and our Lahui interjected. The Lahui interjected. In 2019, they again said, well, we're just going to go ahead and do it because of the ruling in the Hawaii Supreme Court, which did not actually say to start. And at that time, they did not have the funding. And they still haven't proven that they have the funding. So how can you start when you don't have the funding? This has been 35 years of doing this. So I don't have the exact dates of the timeline, but I'm sure our attorneys do. It's come to this, and I think it's over already. It's not a matter of not building it. It's a matter of where are you going to put this? Because you're not going to put this here. If someone doesn't want a project, people of Hawaii, taxpayers, Native Hawaiians, and the general public, 1 million signatures on a petition, a live-in stop the progress of this project for almost a year. As a matter of fact, we only stopped staying at the camp at the crossroads because of COVID, or we'd still be there. How much opposition does the state need to see? And when we mention the university, that is the state. The university is not an independent government. It's an arm of the state of Hawaii. And the state supports the university's efforts. It's obvious. So, it's done. It's over. And we'd like to see the further decommissioning and the removal of the telescopes per the leases in 2033. They've got 10 years left. They should be putting their energy into restoring the energy of Mauna Kea and its original purpose, and its true purpose, and a purpose we can all be proud of, not just in Hawaii, but in the world. It's time to move on.
What do you think it will take to get the TMT construction permit revoked?
You need to ask the DLNR. What is their purpose in doing this? Their job is to protect the land and protect Native Hawaiians who are the right holders and the general public's interest in that right holder, not to protect stakeholders. The state continually uses the land or acts as if the land belongs to the state. No, it does not. The state does not have title. The state has trusteeship over it, but not title. And it must follow what the State Admissions Act calls for them to do. And why does the DLNR or the BLNR continually encourage developers when that's not the purpose of a conservation district? It's one that they should be put in front of the lights and answer why. The university wants to push the project. So whenever the university interprets as complacency, they do. They've always done that. And we come back and we say, no, that's not what it says. No, that's not what it says. And we're hoping that the hearing will clarify again what the university can and cannot do. The last formal stance, the last frontline action of the Lahui, which was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen Hawaiians and supporters of Hawaiians ever do in this place called the state of Hawaii since its inception in 1959. And that was to stand together and say, we love this Hawaii. We're willing to do anything we can to keep Hawaii, Hawaii, and not just some developers or a laboratory for science. This Hawaii, Mauna Kea is not an economic opportunity. It is a spiritual opportunity. It is a cultural opportunity to retrieve and continue practice. And it is a political opportunity to unite our people, to unite Hawaii around things that really matter, which is our future and the future of our keiki. But really, when it comes down to what's going to take it, there's a saying, and it's part Hawaiian and it's part English. And it was a saying amongst all of us, amongst the Lahui, amongst the supporters of the Lahui. And as we walked away from the mountain in 2020 because of COVID, we said it. If anything should happen, we'll see you on the Mauna. And that's what we mean. We'll see you on the Mauna. Drop the project and let's look to a better future. Because Mauna Kea needs the love of us all to make it the one and only place on the face of this world where people can come together and truly come together as one people with hope. It is not a laboratory for science anymore.
Is there anything that Mauna Kea Kia'i protectors and supporters should do or be prepared to do at this time?
I think it would go very, very far to ask them, the university, TMT, the BLNR, they are all being paid. They get a paycheck. A lot of their paychecks come from us, Native Hawaiians and general public, the taxpayers. Are you using the taxpayers' money to the best of your ability? And how is that being used? Look at all that money. Look at all those court cases. Look at all the money for lawyers to tear apart the laws that we stand up for and lay our lives down for. In the spirit of those 34, 35 kupuna that were arrested. And what was their crime? Their crime was aloha aina, to love their land. That's a crime? Do you tell tourists that it's a crime to love your land? Even when your name is on it? Even when that's your heritage? I think the questions need to be asked to them and the state legislature and people with titles like senator and governor and House of Representative and mayors and chair of this and chair of that, who use taxpayers' money, that they get a paycheck. Is that paycheck worth it? What price is aloha now? There's never a price for aloha. And the standard of aloha is much higher than that. It took a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice. You Kiai, you Lahui, us Lahui, the Royal Order of Kamehameha, all of our people from wherever they came, all over the world, and our supporters. We have not forgotten the commitment that we made, not just to her, but to each other, that this is a matter of our very survival. And we will not give up our survival for a scientific laboratory. No more. No more. They have unfettered use since 1968. It's time to decommission, remove, and restore. See you on the Mauna, my brothers and sisters.
Mahalo nui, Kumu Nevis, for sharing what's going on with TMT. In each of our episodes of Free Hawaii News, we have a segment that we call The Pacific Way. And so today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about what things that we can do as Pacific Islanders and as Hawaiians to express or to remind ourselves to actually reactivate the Pacific Way in our own lives. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about our interaction with other countries, or other nations, the family of nations of the Pacific. And earlier today, I talked about, Kalakalas sticking up for the Pacific Island nations who were being decolonized. And then recently, you had a trip to Tonga, and and then we talked a little bit early in this show about the soccer team going to Aotearoa. So there are all of these interactions going on. Tell me, what do you think about this?
Yes, well, I actually returned from both Tonga and Aotearoa. Spent most of the time in Tonga, but on the way down and coming back, I had time to reconnect with a few of my Maori friends there. And I think at one level, a takeaway when it comes to talking about the Pacific Way, you said it earlier, it's about family. When we look at each other as separate nations, different countries, it seems so distant and so far away. But when you say family, and when you know that you come from the same genealogy, the larger genealogy of the Moana Nui, then it doesn't seem so far away. I liken it to how often, as we've mentioned in other news broadcasts, we talk about the usage and promotion of places like Las Vegas on the continental US. And it seems for our people that it's just right there because it's been mislabeled as the ninth island. Mm-hmm. For me, in my mind, in my heart, and my spirit, I look at islands, even though they're farther away, Rapa Nui, Aotearoa, Tonga, Samoa, Tahiti, Tokelau, Tuvalu, you name it. They're all islands that belong to our extended family. Mm-hmm. We are genealogically related to them. We come from the same stock of culture. Mm-hmm. Each of the islands has their own nuance to how they live the Pacific Way, but we're all still Pacific Island people. So what does that mean? That means that our audience out there needs to remember that the more we stay rooted to what makes us Kanaka, what makes us Hawaiian, the more we can live that Pacific Island way. So when you come home with fish, if we have fishermen out there and they come home and the simple act of sharing and giving, that's Pacific Way. When we prepare food and we invite people, we don't say, oh, are you hungry? We say, come eat with me. Hele mai ai ka aua. That's the Pacific
and
Way.
This is prevalent throughout the Pacific.
The Pacific.
Everybody does that the same way. I mean, there's
Yes.
that respect for one another, automatic,
Yes.
that you come and you eat.
Yes.
You come and you stay with us.
Yes.
And let us take care of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's exactly how it was. I got to Aotearoa and my Maori, we acknowledge one another as family. Mm-hmm. They say they're Hawaii family. My Maori, my Aotearoa family, and they said, you should come and stay with us. And, they thought that I was coming in on one day, but I arrived a day early. I think I may have told them the date according to Hawaii time. And so they said, what, you're here? Oh my gosh. And so they immediately whipped up food and said, mm-hmm. We're picking you up, and you and your traveling companion will come over and eat with us. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, same in Tonga, as soon as you arrive, it's customary for the people whom you are important to, they drop what they're doing, they'll go look for a pig, mm-hmm. especially if there's menfolk, that are knowing that you're there. They will go and prepare a pig and prepare Tongan, crops, talo, kumala, whatever is the starch, and they'll bring it with the pig and whatever else they might prepare. But that's the way of the land.
Right.
And I literally had to say, please, I know that's our custom, but I came for this host of programming every day, and they've got us on a schedule, and I'm going to feel bad because every day up until the end of this week, I'm engaged. And so Yeah, but that's Pacific Island way. But we have to live it.
Right.
When I'm in and around my Ni'ihau Island community, my Ni'ihau family,
Mm.
especially for example, during the time of funeral. Now things have changed in the last 20 years, but I remember further back where it was so understood when it comes to a funeral that as soon as someone in the family or someone in your house passes away, all the preparation begins
Right.
immediately.
Right.
You clear things out, you prepare common spaces because you know that family is going to be arriving. You don't know who's going to come at what time, you don't know who's going to bring what, but what you can rely on is that you don't go and look for supplies and provisions. Your family comes with the provisions. And the things that would come in a Ni'ihau community funeral. And I believe, same like my grandmother would share with me about things when she was growing up. You're going to bring food products, if it's chicken, fish, beef, whatever, you're bringing the starches. And of course, because traditional starches became much more difficult to get, depending on if you had a lo'i or not. At least in the Ni'ihau household, you knew that people were coming with 1, 2, 3, 4 large bags of rice. So a 50-pound bag of rice or a 100-pound bag of rice is anticipated. And before you know it, one entire section of the house has stacks of cases of juice or juice mix. You'd have tea, coffee, crackers, you'd have rice bags, sugar, flour, you'd have everything you need, and food provision went into a freezer. Of course, this is still modern, right? But you know that in traditional times, they'd be bringing all kinds of things. But anyway, that's a Hawaiian language speaking community. I never experienced anything to that level in outside Hawaiian communities, likely because the language wasn't present. But I know that, that's what happened. And same when the deceased is there, you talk to them, you speak about them, and you're still interacting with them, and you're not disconnected. American culture, and I think American Christian culture too, to a certain extent. See, Christianity didn't have to be an issue, but American Christianity was quite oppressive to our people. And it seems like there's just this disconnect when you go to like funerals nowadays. Like there isn't that same kind of interaction with the person. But Pacific Way, you interact with the person, you talk to the person, talk to others about that person. And it all becomes part and parcel of that experience. But that is so Pacific Way. But again, the key was language.
Yes, yes. So again, what we're talking about is how about being conscious of the Pacific Way and actually really reordering ourselves, particularly us here in Hawaii, who have been so exposed to and affected by Americanism, to actually try to remember and recall that our real purpose amongst ourselves is to honor one another and to lift up one another, to kako one another, so that we're all in this together. And then that expands out into the entire Pacific as well.
Yes. Yeah. And that's key because that's how we acknowledge our relationships. We know that as Kanaka, when we go visit someone else, we go with something in our hand, even if it's the smallest pu'olo of whatever it is we're sharing. But if we were to forget about what it means to be Pacific people, when we see each other, we would no longer be able to interact in the ways that our ancestors did. And that would be a very big regret. And that would be, for me, a travesty. So
yes.
We can't let that happen, everyone. For today's segment on Kumu Hina's Mana'o, these are my thoughts that I share with you and they are reflected in a recent social media post that I did. And I chose to emphasize the word Lahui. Now, Lahui is something that we Kanaka have been very familiar with, because we say for the Lahui, it's for the people. And we oftentimes are posturing that this Lahui is talking about ethnic Hawaiians. Now, there's some nuances to the word Lahui that we should consider. Let me set aside the primary definition of Lahui as we understand it, and also say that one must know the multiple definitions and meanings that get applied to the word. So depending on the context of how you use Lahui, the term can be utilized in the form of sanction or restriction, saying that something is either off limits or forbidden, something along the lines of kapu. But Lahui, during the time of COVID restrictions, as it impacted people around the world, Lahui was a sanction. But I wasn't talking about Lahui as a prohibition or a sanction on something. I was speaking about Lahui and the subtle difference between Lahui Kanaka and Lahui Hawaii. Because our islands are known to the world as Hawaii or the Hawaiian Islands, the context of using Hawaii referring to all the islands as an archipelago then forces us to think about this little nuance. When we say the Hawaiian nation, as you all out there in viewer land, you'll hear Leon, myself, and we talk about the Hawaiian nation. A Hawaiian nation now then includes every ethnicity that is a part of life here, and that is within the context of that national identity. So Hawaiian national identity, Lahui Hawaii or Kalahui o Hawaii nei, isn't only referring to an ethnic Hawaiian. Now, Lahui Kanaka is more specific. So depending on what your intent is, when we Kanaka, you and I, myself, all of you out there in viewer land, when we utilize the word Lahui, we must be clear. Are we referring to ethnic Hawaiians? Lahui Kanaka. Are we saying Lahui Kanaka o Maui, Lahui Kanaka o Ni'ihau, Lahui Kanaka o Ahu, if we're speaking in a complete Hawaiian language context? Lahui Kanaka is referencing an ethnic Hawaiian. Lahui Hawaii, however, you could be referring to an ethnic Hawaiian, but you also would likely be more inclusive, and it's not inappropriate to use Lahui Hawaii for every other ethnicity that gives of their loyalty and their labor and their presence here to Hawaii. So we know from Kanaka families that have married out, and for years our people have been intertwined with all sorts of haole ethnicities, from the Filipino haole to the Japanese haole to the Chinese haole. All of the foreign ethnicities are essentially haole to Kanaka. It's that's the perspective, and that's the understanding of that word. But again, Lahui, when we look at the word Lahui, we must know the context in which we use it. And let us not be divided by trying to refer to Lahui and be exclusive and make it out to be about ethnicity, when there are many issues that affect all of us in Hawaii. These are Hawaiian national issues. Water, clean drinking water here on the island of Oahu. It is not just an ethnic Hawaiian, it's not just a Lahui Kanaka issue, it is an issue for everybody who's here. And everything that affects our islands, from the ocean to the uplands and everything in between, They are all of our responsibility. So when we talk about Lahui, Hawaii, no matter what our current political status is, if we're going to be really working up to our Pacific Island way and being the Pacific Hawaii, a Hawaiian Hawaii, we have to remember inclusivity is actually a part of that word, Lahui. The Lahui is the nation, not just the ethnic Kanaka. So, folks, when you use the word or use that term, Lahui, are you meaning Lahui Hawaii, Hawaiian nation, or are you referring to Lahui Kanaka? Just make sure that you understand the subtle difference in it, so that way we support and love on the people who will be supporting and loving on us and our Hawaiian nation and our Hawaii causes, things that matter the most to us. Oia wale no kamana o okumuhina no keala no leila mahalo anuia oko.
Mahalo nui loa for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News. We want to thank you for being here, and we want to thank all of our guests for sharing their mana'o with us.
No laile ka lahui mahalo anuia oko, ko oko ho nene ana mai, ke kipa ana mai, I keia papahana o iahiahi nei. Mahalo anui, me ko māua aloha anui, māua no keia, a hui ho kākou, aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. Ahui ho, aloha aina.
Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.